Good evening. Welcome to the second segment of the Glazov Gang. Tonight, our show is on the battle for a free Iran and on the movie I Am Neda. Our guest this evening, Homayoun Mobasseri, he's the founder of Neda for a free Iran. Nicole Kian Sadighi, who was the director of the new movie I Am Neda, and she also starred as Neda in the movie. And Roozbeh Farahanipour, who is the co-founder of Marze pour Gohar. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the pronunciations. How do you rate me on a scale of 1 to 10?
That's 8.
And 8? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Very moving first segment on I Am Neda. All three of you, in each of your own ways on several realms, are freedom fighters for freedom in Iran. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about each of your intellectual and spiritual journeys, and if you want some privacy, you can angle your answer in any way you wish. Roozbeh, let me begin with you. What has brought you? How did you end up in the United States, but at the same time still fighting for a free Iran? I've interviewed you before. We have a past friendship, and you were my colleague on In Front Page to a certain extent of my interviews with you. You struggled for freedom in Iran, also spent some time in prison. Tell us briefly a little bit about your background.
I was born in Tehran in 1971, and when I was a student in the law school, for the first time the regime arrested me, put me in the jail for the first time. And the second time...
Just like what year?
1992.
Oh, okay. All right.
When I was young in the school, that's School of Law in Tehran. And so I couldn't finish my school. I became a journalist.
Just a sec. Why did they arrest you?
Because of one of my speeches in a school on women's rights before Islam.
Okay. So you were standing up for women's rights under that?
Yes, that was research paper.
Okay.
That was research paper in the school. I did my job.
But your angle was that there used to be greater freedom, and you were critical of the persecution or oppression of women under the Islamic Republic, right? But it takes quite a bit of bravery to take a stance like that, does it not?
That was, I think, the many other people, we are doing the same thing. Okay. But at that point, I got lucky to...
Were you scared? Did you know that you would be in trouble?
I didn't know that.
Okay.
Before that, when I was younger, I was in high school. For one of my essay I wrote, they asked me to went to the court. They don't approve me to go to the second level because of my essay. Mm-hmm. That was on late 80s. Oh. But I had the experience in the writings. After school, I became a journalist. Okay. I became an editor-in-chief of the Homayoun magazine. Homayoun is a pre-Islamic magazine at that point. That's a historical magazine, cultural, not political. And the regime shutting down the Homayoun in 1998. Okay. And we found our organization, Iranians for a Secular Republic, or Marze pour Gohar, or easiest way, that's MPG.
I think I'll just say MPG.
We organized MPG. We founded in 1998, July 8.
But this is dissident activity. You are a dissident.
Yeah.
So you were imprisoned. If you don't mind me asking, earlier in that imprisonment, did you suffer some persecution in the prison? I'm sorry to ask that.
That's happened to many other people. Mm-hmm. The things they did with me and the timing I got arrested, that was totally different with the other people. Okay. The dark timing on the 80s, that was the worst time for the political prisoner in Iran. And I don't want to say I was lucky, I got arrested and I got tortured under the regime. On 99, they break my neck. I had many other problems in my body after the torture, and when I escaped from the country, I came to the United States as a political asylum.
I see. Well, Roozbeh, we are pressed for time. I would love to discuss this for hours with you, but it is an honor to sit with such a freedom fighter, and my heart is with you for what you experienced. Thank you for standing for freedom. Let's move on to Homayoun. What can you tell us a bit about yourself?
A little bit about myself. I grew up in Tehran, like many other Iranians. And I'm a graduate of Naval Academy from Britain. Went back to Iran and I received further training from US Navy and British Navy. Then I got in problem after the revolution when the war with Iraq was happening. I was in part in that war involved, and then I got in trouble with the regime.
Why? Why did you get in trouble?
Because I was opposing everything that they were doing in the sense of dictatorship and the sense of that I was saying the country is going the wrong way, and I couldn't hold back my tongue, as we say in Persian.
Let me interrupt for a minute. Homayoun, what differentiates people like you with other people in the sense that some people remain silent and they stay out of prison, they stay out of trouble. People like you at this table begin saying something. What was it in you that you just could not remain quiet? For instance, Vladimir Bukovsky, a dissident in the Soviet Union, when he landed in prison, he felt at home because he said, I cannot be a free man in a slave camp. I need to be in prison, because he believed he had to speak out.
I had to speak out basically, and I was put in trial at the Islamic Revolutionary military tribunals, as they call it, by Ayatollah Reishari. I believe that Roozbeh knows well about him. And anyway, miraculously, I managed to escape. And I couldn't believe it myself, but it happened. It's a long story by itself. And the very first thing that did upset me, it was almost about a month after the revolution, or a month and a half after the revolution. I was going with my wife for a lunch at a restaurant outside in Tehran. I was in Tehran at that time. And over there they told my wife that she has to wear a headscarf.
Okay.
And that by itself, pulled me a little bit back, because I didn't believe in that.
Right.
And a lot of other people, they believe that they have to live a life and bring the food on their table. I don't blame them for going quiet, because they're honorable people. But to me, it was not acceptable, and there are people that are different with each other.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and as the son of dissidents who stood up for freedom, I admire you very much, because as you say, some people want to put bread on the table, other people are ready to sacrifice everything for the truth and for liberty. Nicole, a bit about your own personal journey.
Gosh, it's not as, it's compared to these two stories, it's really not as impressive or much of a story. It's, I grew up in London.
You were born in Iran?
Yes, I've been in London since I was 2.
Okay.
My parents are journalists, and so I've always been around, the news and the talk of Iran and politics, and them being Iranian expats. And I got my college degree. I promised my dad I'd get my college degree, but I really wanted to go to performing arts school and do acting, but it was on the condition that I got my college degree. During my time in London, I've been a writer. I've also been a writer here, occasionally writing op-eds for both Persian and American and English speaking magazines and newspapers, mainly about Iran. It's just been something I've done as a hobby, I guess, as a call of duty, for better or want of a word.
But Nicole, it also takes a lot of bravery, even when we're in the West, because the hand and the arm of a totalitarian, brutal regime like that reaches everywhere. Where did you get your courage to even make a film like this, knowing that it could become internationally known and such a dagger in the heart of a brutal regime?
Yes. Well, I'm pretty used to hate emails coming from people who don't like what I've said. I've been quite outspoken before through my articles, and in fact in London I was receiving a lot of death threats, to the point where the police involved Scotland Yard and Interpol was involved.
Now these death threats are connected to your writings about a free Iran,
right?
And against the Republic,
right?
Islamic Republic.
Yes, yes. And so you know, and I think, I'm sure these two gentlemen sitting beside me have also been through this. I think anyone who's Iranian, you can ask them both. They receive probably threats every day, probably more than me. But you know, I decided to use the skills that I have as you know, in the entertainment industry, and really use this movie platform, which is an amazing platform, to be able to reach the masses more than an op-ed could ever do, which is where it reached me. I always wanted to do something of my own project, but something that meant something to me. And here synchronicity just knocked on my door, and I felt compelled to make a movie instead of just writing about it.
Thank you so much, and again, a true honor for me to be in the presence of a modern-day warrior like you for freedom. We have just a few minutes left in this segment. I'm going to ask some quick questions, please. Only 15 seconds or so to each question, okay? Roozbeh, your thoughts on the Shah, in the sense that people painted him as a monster, but Khomeini killed more people in 2 weeks than the Shah did his whole regime. Was he the devil? Was he a devil that at least was better than the devil we didn't know?
Shah.
What are your thoughts on the Shah?
My thought on the Shah. Shah was an internal dictator.
Okay.
But the Khomeini is an Arab occupier. He occupied my country. You cannot compare the dictator with the occupier of the countries.
So just a second. So the Shah is a dictator of Iran, but you consider the regime that's in Iran to be foreign occupiers.
Yes, I consider that the second Arab occupation of Iran.
Okay, just a second. Now, what does that mean? Wasn't the revolution led by Iranians? Or are you referring to Islam?
Yeah, that's referred to Islam and Arab culture. And even though after the revolution they changed the name of Iran in United Nations to Islamic Republic of Iran.
I see.
And they changed our Iranian logo in our flags to Arabic logo.
Okay. Homayoun, your thoughts on the Shah, and also briefly, is it an occupied force that's...
Unfortunately, Shah was a dictator. I do agree with that. But at the very same time, he was a nationalist dictator. So he was, unfortunately, he believed that by doing things his own way and nobody else has any mind, he created, in my sense, you know, this current situation. And current situation, if Shah, at the very pace that he was promoting advancement in the country, he was promoting, you know, democracy, we wouldn't end up here.
Okay, Nicole, final thoughts on the Shah as compared to the regime that took over. And what I'm kind of emphasizing is, I think Jimmy Carter betrayed Iran and pulled the rug from under his feet and punished the Shah, and yet a far worse regime came in, a real bloodbath. But your thoughts on it?
I know that before this regime was aided by the EU's Big Three, and somehow Carter was also involved, and if you ask any Iranian, we all know the history. I know that Iran used to be a great ally of America and Israel, and you know, I mean, this is an old subject. I don't know whether it's relevant now. I do know that everybody who came out of, you know, Iran at the time are alive to tell the tale and tell the story, whereas now you don't find that so cool.
Very significant reality. Thank you very much for joining us for the second segment of the Glazov Gang. We will be back tomorrow evening with our 3 freedom fighters to discuss what can be done to free Iran. See you then.